All right, everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 49. We got Big Box Steve on the mic. Of course, Big Smooth, Derek. No Fresh Wes as of yet, so we'll see if he shows up out of the darkness. Um, so back after a week's hiatus, we missed last week, but we still got our picks in, so we'll go over that. So if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can see them coming up. Pretty good playoff record so far. I think overall there's a couple games that went a little sideways, but I think the overall outcomes are kind of where we expect them to be at right now. So also, if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave any comments, questions, anything like that. So let's just scroll back just a little bit before we jump into current. Let's just overview the playoffs so far, right? We got our playoff picks in for the week one wild card. If you didn't see on the last podcast, you can watch the previous podcast. Uh, there was a couple games that I think could have went either way. Especially obviously the Jacksonville game, which that kind of gave you a big lead in the wild card because you picked Jacksonville in that one. I think Wes and I took
Yeah.
the Chargers.
Rutgers got a charger.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, how crazy is that game? I mean, I know it's a little bit in the past up to at this point, but let's talk a little about that game. I mean, if you're a Chargers fan, how you feel at the beginning or at the halftime and then at the end of the game?
Well, I don't know. I still think it's ridiculous. The head coach is still there.
Yeah,
Brandon Staley, oh my gosh. They fired the offensive coordinator. Um, it's not his fault that, they were up by that much and they lost the game. I kind of feel like, the big thing is, and it's nothing against him, he's still young, but all the Herbert plays, he didn't do anything really that whole game. He had
yeah.
one touchdown and he didn't really show up. And if they would have just had one drive in the second half, they would have still won the game. So for me, I'm a fan of the Chargers. Thankfully, I'm not. Um, yeah, I'm kind of a little concerned that they just can't get over the hump.
Yeah, they didn't have the greatest season record overall, but they weren't bad. I mean, they had a decent season. Obviously they weren't able to win the division, but they're coming in, as a team that won quite a few games and had quite a bit of injuries throughout the season, so still played well, still won games. Um, the up and the down there as a Chargers fan, you got to be that's probably like the highest to the lowest you can go in a playoff game.
Mhm.
Outside maybe the Falcons in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, or maybe the Seattle fans on the 1 yard line.
What was it? What was it? The Bills and that was it the Oilers when Frank Reich brought him back?
Oh yeah. So that's another
Playoffs?
playoff game because they were what were they down like 25 or something like that? It's like 34-10 or something like that, right?
Yeah,
And they
it
come
was
back
the
and beat
biggest
them
comeback. Yeah.
at that time. I think the Chargers now have that though, right? It's 27 or is
Biggest comeback. Did you send Wes the email?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he should have it.
NFL playoff history.
Because what was it was 28-3 in the Super Bowl, right? So the Falcons wasn't the Falcons Patriots 28-3 at halftime?
Yeah.
So that was 25 points. I
Um,
can't remember the Titans and Buffalo score.
the Bills, Oilers, because it was the Oilers back then,
Right.
32 points. They came
32. So
back
that's
from
still
30 points. Yeah.
That's still the
Yeah,
biggest, right?
Houston led 35-3 with 8 minutes and 53 seconds to the third
Wow.
quarter.
Wow. Yeah, so that's a rough one.
And then there was actually 2014, the Colts came back to beat the Chiefs. That was 28 points. And then it's the Chargers by 27. And then the
It's pretty
Falcons.
tough.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I didn't really think that the Jags could win that game, which obviously is why I picked the Chargers. And once after the first half, you're thinking, wow, like they can't win this game. Like, so that
Well,
that was a rough one.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I stopped watching after I think Lawrence's second pick. And I'm like, I'm so mad. I'm going to lose this game. And then I looked back and it was like the third quarter and I looked at the score and I saw, the Jags had just scored and I think they were still down by 21. And I was just like, I think they're going to make the comeback. So
Right.
then I turned the game on and then it was totally different feeling. And I kind of felt like when Lawrence threw all those interceptions, that was the only reason the Chargers got that big lead.
Right, right.
And then when he settled down, they couldn't stop him.
Yeah, for it first gets 27-7, you're looking at that. I always see those games like when you're winning by maybe 13 and then two touchdowns beat you by a point, or anytime there's the 1 point difference, where I always look at those games like, oh man, they're gonna pull the 1 point loss. you know
Like it didn't happen, but be like the Cowboys losing to the Bucks because they're missed so many extra points.
right. And so Wes, we're recapping wild card week 1. We just started with the Jags Chargers game. Obviously just a nightmare for Chargers fans. Um, and then you gave Derek kind of the leg up there because you and I had the Chargers and he had the Jags in that game.
Yeah.
And then what about so Dallas, Tampa? So I think Wes, you picked Dallas in that,
Yeah.
and then Derek and I picked Tampa, which I kind of had a feeling Dallas was going to win, but at the same time, like I can never trust Dallas, which is the problem.
Right.
Why? Why don't you trust
Why?
Dallas?
Why don't you trust? Because he's a franchise quarterback.
Because he does so many great commercials.
Oh
That
my
makes him a
gosh.
great quarterback. Just like against the Niners.
Uh, but I think Tampa really just showed how bad they really were in that game. Uh, that whole division, obviously, no one deserved to be in the playoffs out of that division. But even Tampa, you watch that and just say, yeah, now you see why they were, 8-9.
Yeah. I mean, I
Brady
seriously,
was off.
yeah. I honestly, I thought Carolina was going to win that division because they were actually running the ball, like they were playing good defense, and they just couldn't beat Tampa that 1 week. So trust me, I put money on it. I was like, Carolina's gonna get hot. I was like, oh wow, yeah,
Well, Brady threw the ball, like 52 times
Yeah.
in that game? Something like that? Like, come on. That's really how you're going to try to win this game.
yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
got Leftwich fired.
You're right.
yeah, it's all his fault. Yeah, it's completely his fault. The dysfunctionality of everything. You know what I thought was weird today was that Hackett got hired
He did.
as the Jets offensive coordinator.
Isn't that crazy?
He oversaw the worst offense in NFL history.
Right.
But you get a job? Are you
As an
kidding me?
offensive
There's
coordinator.
not better. What are the Jets thinking? There are people, there's a lot of great offensive minds in college football and all over the place. That's the best you could do is hack it. Speaking of hack, his
Right.
name's Hack. I mean, yeah, you're gonna hire that guy. Talk about offensive dysfunctionality. I mean, come on.
It's weird to me that they hired him as an offensive coordinator. Like, I understand maybe he's a good coach, in aspects of he's good with players or whatever aspects you look at and say there was a reason he was a head coach, but not an offensive coordinator. Like you just proved you destroyed what could have been a good offense.
You destroyed Russell Wilson. I mean, I'm not going to say Russell Wilson is terrible, but you certainly could not help Russell Wilson at all.
Well, talking heads are saying the reason why they did that is the same reason why Hackett went to the Broncos, is they're trying to get Aaron Rodgers to go there.
Right.
Oh,
Which is a possibility.
right. He was a coordinator. That's true.
Yeah. But they also, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know that he's swingable that way. I don't know that that's going to make any reason for him to say, "Oh, I'm going to go play for the Jets."
Well,
but it's a trade anyway. He's not a free agent.
They're probably desperate at this point because all they're talking about on ESPN is Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets.
Right.
That's the only place he's probably going to go. He's not going to the Raiders or the Cowboys. It's the Jets. So maybe that's the reason.
I've definitely seen that a few times. People saying, Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. So that's definitely out there.
And Brady to the Raiders.
Brady to the Raiders. I've seen that more than I've seen Rodgers to the Jets. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, that.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. If you're the Raiders and you do get Brady and then you draft a quarterback, like that's the idea, right? Is that you're bringing Brady in to maybe play a few games, but be your rookie to be under the belt for a while.
I think with that, if you go with that, I would think you would want to maybe trade back and get Richardson.
Right.
Because he can sit and learn. Because he's the most talented out of all those quarterbacks, but he's just not polished at all.
Yeah, I've seen a mock draft though with them taking Richardson because I've seen Levis in the top 5.
I've seen Levis going not to the Bears, but going number 1 overall to the
on a trade. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Mel Kiper says Levis is like the best quarterback ever.
Yeah.
So
and
he's
I think Kiper was the one that had the Colts trading up to number 1 for him.
I don't think Kiper doesn't do trades in his. I think he had the Bears taking Jalen Carter in 1.
He does. Yeah, they don't have. Yeah, he has Carter going 1, which I still think. I still think the Bears are going to trade down. Why wouldn't you trade down? Why wouldn't you trade down?
The reason you don't trade down is because the teams that want to trade up don't think they need to get their guy.
Right.
And so if Houston is taking, say, Bryce Young, and then Indianapolis says, well, we wanted CJ Stroud anyway, or Levis, even in that case, then they don't need to trade up.
Right.
Because Arizona is definitely taking, one of the 2 defensive guys.
Right.
So but I think that runs it.
You don't know if someone's going to trade up though.
Right. And so I think the trade up for Bears comes from if they get interest from some of the, other teams that want quarterbacks, and then maybe Indianapolis feels like they have to because somebody else is going to trade up.
Because if I'm the Bears, I don't want to get out of the top 4.
No, I don't either. You got to take you want one of those 2 defensive guys. That's what you want. Yeah. But I could see Houston being like, I don't care. I'll take Stroud or Young.
Right.
And so I don't think if I'm Houston, I don't move. I don't see any reason for Houston to move.
Well, I've seen most of the mocks are saying Stroud will fall to 7.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, because they have Levis and
right
Young going, and then you have Carter, Anderson, Breeze, Tyree Wilson, the Polish or whatever Penn State tackle.
Is that the guy that the Raiders are projected?
Yeah.
Kowski?
Yeah. Some mock had the Raiders passing on CJ Stroud and taking a tackle and letting Stroud fall. I'm like,
Right.
that's not
Why not? Because it's safe, and the dude will get injured probably in the first 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Because I would never. The only reason I would take Jalen Carter, which I move him the outside more, is the way these. I mean, just look at Mahomes. Look at all these players. They get hurt so easily, and then they're hurt the whole year.
Yeah.
Why would you take an inside player in top 3? I know Jalen Carter's great, but at the same point, just get hurt so easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, do the Rams win the Super Bowl without Aaron Donald?
Right. Yeah.
But he's not it. But
you need to pressure up the middle. That's where you get the pressure.
Yeah, but Aaron Donald's an exception because he was healthy to a certain extent.
Well, look at
you're gonna bank your whole team on a guy that's getting pressure up the middle. You bank it on a quarterback.
Right, but if
it just makes more sense. So maybe Jalen Carter could fall a couple spots.
Well, he's gonna go in the top 4 for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But because everyone's like saying the Bears are going to take him at 1. It's like,
well, that's if they can't trade down.
If they can't trade down, is the thing. It's like if you can't trade down as the Bears, you have to take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. You have to.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? What else are you going to do with your number 1 pick?
Yeah, sure.
So it really comes down to the offers they get, right? So if they don't, I think if it comes close enough to the draft, they might be looking at like teams would be better to wait it out, and not throw offers at them and then get them nervous to like, we're not going to get any offers. So maybe they'll take move back a little bit and then like a late second or something like that, where they don't have to pay a lot to get that number 1 pick.
Right. And you'll have to see where Carr goes, because that will take one of the teams out. Whoever he goes to, they're not going to want a quarterback, right?
Go to the Texans.
Well, I mean, that's
going to the Texans.
You'll know that before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna Carr will
what a mess.
He'll change that.
What a mess the league has made everything. Let's get to our picks, because this is a very interesting. This is a very interesting championship game. It's kind of hard to figure out the AFC here.
Well, let's quickly get back to recap since we got kind of off topic there. So first round, right? Round 1, I think a lot of the games went how you would expect them to go. I think maybe Minnesota and the Giants, that to me was still kind of a coin flip anyway. I picked Minnesota, but I think that game obviously could have went either way. I don't think either team was great there. But for the most part, I think when you get to the second round last week.
I mean, you hit the Bengals. If Huntley doesn't fumble the ball on the 1 yard line, we're not even talking about the Bengals right now.
Well, I mean, it changes that game for sure.
That's true. That's why all you hear the whole week is that the Bengals are invincible. It's like, no, they're not. They almost lost to the freaking Ravens.
Yeah, and watching that game, they took the Ravens very lightly, in my opinion. Like, I don't think they thought it would have been much of a game. I think they thought they could go in and walk over them, and so they didn't really. They didn't play like they'd been playing the last, say 10 games or so. It's kind of a letdown,
But what's funny is you talk about the Minnesota and Giants game. How the Giants won the game, right? Okay, great. And then the Giants get blown out by the Eagles, which was a little surprising. I wasn't too surprised, but because what the heck? What is wrong with the Vikings? Like, how do you? And I have to blame Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, what is wrong with the Vikings, Wes?
Like, look. I mean, And then how do you not sit there and say that that's not the problem? You know?
Well, their
I think
defense is pretty bad too.
their defense is terrible. The problem with blaming Kirk Cousins is it's a lot of it is with the eye test, not statistically. Because if you look at statistics on Kirk Cousins, if you never watch Kirk Cousins play, you'd think he's a top 5 quarterback if you just looked at stats. Right. But when you watch him play, you see things in the game and you're like, what's he
That's
doing? Right. He's like
dude,
he's
dude,
throwing bad
Justin Jefferson's
passes.
like the best. He's like a top 2 receiver in the
Right.
NFL. Justin Jefferson. He's got Hawkinson. He's got probably the best receiving running back in the history of the NFL. And forget about him as a running back. He's, Dalvin Cook
he's
is
great
one of
out
the
of the
best
backfield.
receiving. Maybe he's not the best running back in the NFL, but he's the best receiving. Like, catch the ball. Like, I'm scared. Like, because Kirk Cousins is this. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I'll throw it to the fastest freaking receiver as a running back in the NFL. It's like he's got so many weapons.
Yeah, if you look at that game though, like how did they really lose the game though? Giants put together these long methodical drives, like 12 play, 13 play drives. They were chewing up 6 and 7 minutes at a time. They were keeping Minnesota off the field. And so does come back to a little bit about, was Minnesota's defense good enough to propel them through the playoffs, right? And I don't think it was. I think Minnesota's defense, if you look at their point differential throughout the year, right? You look at, they're a negative point differential. They give up a lot of points every game, and their offense carried them. In the playoffs, that's hard to do. It's hard to go in with no defense. And to let the Giants walk all over him like they did, yeah, Kirk Cousins made mistakes. He missed a couple balls, especially at the end, but your defense let you down through that whole game.
Well, and then why I took the Jaguars and the Giants, coaching matters in the playoffs.
Right.
And Dayball is probably coach of the year this year, and he did like amazing game plan also. And that's what I think happened. And then of course when talent, the Eagles were so much more talented than the Giants. That was why I was kind of like,
yeah. Well, so we get to last week, right? I think overall, not a hard week to pick. I think the hard game was obviously the Bills and Bengals. For the most part, I didn't think any of the other teams were going to win. Like, obviously, I mean, for me, Jags going into KC, I didn't see that happening. Giants going into Philly, like, come on, like that's an obvious win there.
Well, I mean, I almost thought about taking the Giants for a minute, but then I realized, you look at the Giants roster top to bottom,
Yeah.
And then the only reason was because they thought Hurts was, going to be compromised. He's hurt. But it's funny, the whole week they were telling us, they're, because his shoulder, they're like working with him to fall on his left side. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you run and like, okay, I'm gonna fall on my left side? That's what they're doing in practice. So he didn't hurt his shoulder.
Wait till you see what they do with Mahomes this week. They're going to be protect your ankle.
No, it is the most. That's why I'm not counting them out, because it is the most looked at ankle in the history of the NFL.
And if I don't understand, I was watching that game, and then if I'm the Jaguars, why aren't there more tackles at Mahomes' feet? Do something.
because
get in there, fall, do a little,
because the reason why is because they didn't play football in our generation.
Right. It's a penalty
in our generation. Exactly. It's a done deal. He's done.
Yeah, but if you take him out, who cares about a 15-yard penalty?
But
I think this is the thing what people don't understand about football now is everyone's way sensitive, especially after the Hamlin thing. Look at the whole Hamlin thing this whole weekend. Hamlin's in the booth. Everyone's like cheering, and I'm just like,
All right,
Did
so
you
before
hear?
we get into our picks, let's talk about the Hamlin thing because I know
Did
you
you
guys
hear
have seen this.
are you talking about the BS where
The,
they said that he's
so,
dead?
well, I mean, obviously he's not dead because you saw pictures of him in the hospital, right?
No,
So,
but there were actually people saying that
no,
there's an actor.
there's people doing it for views, but so there is the body double thing, right? So they're saying that
Yeah.
they had someone come in to the game that day as Damar Hamlin.
What?
You know,
Who said that?
oh, this is the biggest conspiracy right here.
It's a
Well, so here's the
conspiracy?
issue. So here's the issue. You don't, there's no pictures of his face the whole time, right? So you don't get a single
Right,
look at
yeah.
him. They bring him in, on a security cart. He's got a mask, glasses, and a hood on, right? They bring
Yeah.
him in, and then when they get him, start taking him up to the booth, they surround him with security guards. He turns the corner without showing his face. They got him up in the booth. They got a side view, a back view of him in the booth, and then they got a cross view that you can't see him either in that. And so this is what people are saying is that they had a body double because you never see his face one time, right? So
Yeah,
why would this guy be able to be at the stadium for over 3.5 hours, 4 hours, or wherever the game is, and you don't have one single picture of his face?
Derek, you start.
So now here's the second question though. Second question on
What's the
top of that,
point?
and I'll hear that. Well, because if do you put it past an NFL team to bring him in there to pump up their crowd, like to
It's
say,
already the
hey, here.
playoffs, and it's the Bills Mafia already. I don't think you need to pump them up anymore.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Steve has sort of a point here. It's not. It's like you're listening to Romo and these guys on TV when they're talking about they were pumping up Hamlin. It's a great American story. It's like, what are you talking about? It's a great American story. What are you talking about?
Right.
Well, that a great American story is over. They lost.
Yeah. All of a sudden, this is a great American story. The dude almost died, and he's going to be sick the rest of his life. And we don't even know, and they won't even tell us what happened.
Well, yeah, and so there's obviously the conspiracies, right? And people are going to do that for social media views. They're going to say, "Oh, he's dead," and that's. But obviously, we know he's not dead, right? Because you've seen pictures of him in the hospital, you've seen videos of him FaceTiming with his teammates and things like that from the hospital.
But why wouldn't they show?
So that's the only question that I would have now. Whether it's true or not, like I don't know, because who knows, and you would think that that would be a stupid thing, but at the same time, you would also think that there's two things that bother me. One, you're telling me you can't get a single picture of this guy's face in all the hours that he spent at the game, and he's the most popular person in the world right now in the NFL world. And number two is that I don't put it past the NFL to do stuff like that. Like it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. Like if that was actually the case when we found out, I'd be like, yeah, that's the NFL. That's these guys. That's the crap they would do. So it is an interesting theory, and of course everybody defaults to conspiracies when they call it conspiracy theory nowadays. That's everything is a conspiracy instead of just like, hey, what's going on here? But so
Oh, sorry, I'm reading all
thoughts.
there's Hamlin responds to clone rumors after playoff appearance.
He's a clone.
Damar Hamlin body double conspiracy theory spread by anti-vaccine advocates.
Right.
Oh, no.
But how does that? That's the point to me. Is like it has nothing to do with anti-vax. If you're bringing him in, like if he's not physically able to go to the game.
No, because they're saying that's why he had the heart issues.
Oh yeah. No, obviously that's been a conspiracy since he collapsed, right? That was the first thing that came out.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's the vaccine.
Did he have the booster shot? Is that
I
what
don't.
people are
They didn't
saying?
get. He definitely had the vaccine. I don't. They didn't get into boosters. Or at least I didn't read
Oh, okay.
anything about boosters. I know he had the actual vaccine, but
Yeah.
um,
I don't know. Well,
like
they
I said,
lost.
it's kind of an interesting. So every time I see these videos on it, anybody that's like, "Oh, it's dead. He's dead," and they're just trying to pretend like he's not. Like that's stupid. Obviously,
Who's saying
but
that he's a clone?
the people
It was
that
a
show the people that come with the videos and they say, "Look, why can we not get a picture of his face?"
well,
It's a little suspicious. So if you were to show up at a game, right, you're gonna show up in a hood, sunglasses, and a face mask up to your nose, and wear that the whole game throughout everywhere you went.
Well, maybe
it's
if they're talking about, his immune system is so wrecked up that if he got sick or something, it might really mess him up. So maybe that's why
Right. So then
well,
he's
why
still
even
wearing
at the
masks
game?
and stuff.
Stay home.
why where
You're
yeah,
going
Because
into a place with
dude,
60,000 people.
you guys
right.
are you
Yeah,
guys are football players. You guys played football. It's the playoffs. You don't think you would try to make it for your teammates?
true.
If my
I mean,
life depended on it, I would think twice.
yeah. I mean, I
Your life depends on it anyway if you're playing football, right?
Yeah, not to just go watch the game, right? I
it.
can sit at home
You
and I
know
can root
what?
you guys on.
It. You're right. It's a little weird. The
Right.
whole situation is strange and weird. And we he needs to worry about getting better, and he doesn't have to play football ever again. Probably should because of his heart. And you know, we're just happy he's alive.
Right.
Like we don't care if he's at the freaking game. He should be rebuilding. He should be rehabilitating and getting better. Football is a game. We all know. We talk about it, it's fun. But there's more important things like life.
Yeah.
He didn't need to be at the game.
Well, and again, there's a lot of different stuff out about it. I think it's interesting just to listen to
The
the
conspiracy. I
side
didn't
of
even know this was
the
going on.
conspiracy
Like,
theory, right?
what am I listening to? I'm
Right.
just listening to ESPN. Now this dude's a clone.
Right.
Like, Attack of the
So
Clones.
so regardless, so they lose the game.
Well, I mean, if we're just gonna be like a conspiracy theory to Josh Allen, they talked to him about it. And he was like, "This is stupid. There was zero chance. That was DeMar. That's our guy, our brother. He was with us pregame, postgame. He was up in the suite with his family, his little brother, 100%. So, I
Right.
mean,
So it must be true
would
since
you bring
Josh Allen
his?
said it.
Well, okay, but it's like you bring his whole family in, and it's like, oh no, we're gonna bring in a fake with his whole family.
They didn't even come together.
I mean,
Like
that's
so. I mean, obviously you could go on,
this
you
is just
know,
ridiculous talking
Go-
about this. This is just
Google,
ridiculous.
CNN, things like that, and you're gonna see what you want to see. But um, the point is, it's like
Do you
saying
really think it was a body double, Steve?
It's a
no. What I think is that what I think is that there's good talk about it. It's like saying, oh, well, JFK was, it was just a one lone gunman. There's nothing else that could have happened, and close it down by just saying it's a conspiracy theory. So whether it
No,
happened
I
or
mean,
not, I don't
there's
know.
certain conspiracies to talk about and some that are just like ridiculous. There's no gain in this.
There's no,
I
I mean,
mean,
I think there's a gain when you're trying to win a playoff game and you're pumping up your fans and he's up there and they show him in the box and he's raising his hands doing
yeah.
stuff that they say someone who just had died couldn't do with his arms.
but
That's
Steve, okay, here's what's ridiculous about this. This is the Bills Mafia. We're not talking about you're at the Las Vegas stadium with half the crowd is a different team. Do you really think they need any motivation? They haven't won a Super Bowl. They don't need any motivation from a fake thing.
They don't.
They're going to be loud and crazy as it is.
You're exactly right. This is the build. These people jump off of RVs onto freaking tables, which I think is ridiculous. How do you jump off a table? Like, talk about killing your body. Like these guys
Yeah,
are nuts. They
that
don't
hasn't
need
hasn't
DeMar
helped them much,
Hamlin
has
to
it?
motivate them.
Hasn't helped them much, has it?
But look,
Maybe they do need a little more motivation than jumping off RVs,
well,
because
they did.
obviously it's not working.
They got Hamlin in the booth, and he scored 10 points against the Bengals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the answer. They scored 10 points against the Bengals. You know, we're talking about
What
But
I
the-
think really happened,
It's silly though
it was
to
Hamlin
say
there.
something's impossible.
No, but I mean, we could say a bunch of stuff and it could be totally ridiculous, but then go, but it could be a chance, though. It might be true.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if there was like a picture of his face, and they could say, "Look, he was obviously at the game. Here's a picture of his face," but you don't have
Well,
one.
there's one, Steve. You have a point to a certain extent, but we also have to think about someone in his position at the point. Like he did almost die. He's probably pretty frayed emotionally, and they're not going to do an interview with someone that was in that state. You know, I mean, hey, like what happened? Honestly, it scarred probably a lot of football fans because I mean, I was really nervous. I was like,
Right. You don't need to do an
we're
interview with
gonna
someone.
witness our first death in football on the field.
You don't need to
And
do an
so-
interview, Wes, though, to get a picture of his face.
What?
You don't need to do an interview to get a picture of his face. Like if he's walking at the camera and you can't get a picture of his face.
Well, I guess they could, couldn't they? Couldn't they get? I mean, he's walking.
Every single picture of him, he's either his head's turned, his hood's up, his
Okay.
sunglasses and mask is covering. There's not a single actual photo of his
So
face.
what do you think's going on? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's weird.
It is that's a little weird. I
That's
get it.
Whether
You
it's
know,
him
it's
or
a little
not,
weird.
I think it's strange, and to totally dismiss that as not strange, that's just weird to me.
It is. I didn't. I see. I don't know this. I didn't
It's
know
weird
that.
to me that this is even, who cares? It has no, you got to look at what is the reasoning and what would be the motivation for this. The only motivation is to say that it's a body double. There's no motivation for him to be there. And it's like the only motivation is for people like that are like, oh my gosh, it's someone that's not him. What are they doing? Where is he? No, it's, who cares?
Is DeMar Hamlin running for president?
He went to a game,
right?
Is he
He went to a
I
game
mean,
up in a
Is he
freaking skybox.
Is he going to be the UN leader? Is he going to be the UN
Yeah.
Security General now? We don't know what's going on here. You know,
But I mean, I don't know if you go anywhere, this is like storylines everywhere. So
I didn't know. I didn't know that. Okay. I get it.
Obviously,
the
Wes
problem
isn't in the
is
loop.
no. The you know what it is, dude, is we all play football. I think a few of us have gotten hurt pretty badly playing football, right? And I just didn't really want to look at it because it kind of, when he got hurt, I was like, you feel pretty bad for him, and you don't want to sit there. Like, I just didn't want to, like, I'm like, hey, he's good, he's gonna be okay. Like, but you don't want to really look at the detail. You don't want to look at the details.
No, and the whole situation, it's horrible, and I also think it's horrible for people to try to talk about how he's dead, and the vaccine caused it, and they're trying to make it political, or they're trying to make it.
They're trying to make it into a political.
All of that,
and
it sucks.
And in my opinion, the players are not properly protected. I think if you watch the last 60 years of football, especially into the 90s, they were properly padded. And these players now are not.
Right.
And these players are faster and bigger, and they're still wearing helmets. And if you get hit in the wrong place, shit like this could probably happen. And so that's what they should. But they don't talk about that. All they talk about is that, hey, he's great. Everything's great. What a story. It's like,
right.
Wait a minute. Why did it happen in the first place? And everyone wants to blame the vaccine. Oh, the vaccine, it's a booster. I go, No, you guys need to do more studies on what's going on here. In my opinion, these players, they're not wearing enough pads.
Yeah, there's so many. Like when you talk about head injuries, you talk about different kind of injuries. Like one of the things that I had brought up before that I still believe is they're taking so much, performance enhancing legal stuff, whether it be creatines or protein powders or these things those things elevate your heart rate. Those things give you things, will give you that type of stuff.
Do you think players are taking a lot of creatine? I used to take creatine.
Well, it's a little different type of creatine now, but yeah, there's supplements that are very similar to creatine that they're all taking. And it's not creatine per se because they've made it a little safer, but that
Right.
doesn't change it from changing the way it elevates heart rates, and it does things to your body that can cause that type of reaction. Like it could have been a very simple case of he had inflammation in his heart and he got hit very simply. So there's a lot of that goes into it.
Right.
Either way, obviously, the Bills lost.
You know what? And that's probably our next subject. Are the Bengals that good?
Well,
they
so
shut down the Bills.
I guess the question is, and here's what I've seen about the Bills after this loss. A lot of people are saying this was supposed to be the Bills' year, right?
Yeah.
And so where do the Bills go from here? Where do they stand now? Like, are they still able to draw, a high-end talent? Do people still want to go to Buffalo after seeing where, like, are they peaking now? Where does Buffalo go from here? I think that's a question that I've seen. So what do you guys
They
think
got
about
Josh
that?
Allen still.
What do you think, Derek?
Well, Josh Allen's still in his rookie deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are going to still go there. But I feel like the biggest thing was Dayball leaving. Dorsey's offensive game plan in the snow was stupid. It's like, it's snowing out. Let's throw to the sidelines. No, you go vertical.
Right.
And that's what the Bengals did. They went vertical. And that's this 2 years in a row. Leslie Frazier's defense has sucked in the playoffs. Like it was a sieve against the Chiefs last year. And then this year, the Bengals did whatever they wanted.
And I don't think like Dawson Knox is terrible, but I feel like Buffalo was hurt in this game by not having a good tight end. Because Hurst, I think Hayden Hurst was a big difference maker for a lot of plays for the Bengals. He may not have had a big game statistically, but he was getting good yardage over the middle, catching the ball, making first downs.
He did have a touchdown catch, but it was the reason why is because
that was a fake screen, right?
Yeah, they did a fake screen to Chase, and it was successful. I like how they used Chase in the game. They actually did put Chase in the backfield, and they ran those flare plays to him. It's
right.
Like, okay, like we're not, they're gonna try to, well, let's open up the field with Chase. We'll put him Chase wherever we need to put him because he's our best player.
Kind of the opposite of what they did with Diggs, right? They really.
Yeah.
They could have gotten Diggs involved a lot more, which you saw
Diggs
at the end of the
so
game. He was
pissed off on the
frustrated.
sideline. Yeah. He's like yelling on the sideline, like, give me the freaking ball,
Well, he left the locker room. They had to go get him to bring him back.
And then Allen was off too. I mean, there was a play for like Gabe Davis had a guy beat and he underthrew it. And so then Davis slowed down and the DB knocked it out.
I think this is what I think about the Bengals and the Bills in long term, even the next 2 or 3 years is I think the Bills will be fine because the Bengals got to pay a lot of players next year.
Yeah,
they're gonna
have a tough time.
They're not gonna be able to do it. If the Bengals are gonna win the Super Bowl, it's gonna be now. If it's not gonna be now, then it's gonna be another couple years because they're gonna have to pay a lot of guys, and they cannot do it. A lot of guys are gonna go on defense, and so the Bills, their nucleus, they're okay for next year. They just need to add some pieces, and I think, they're going to be the favorites again next year. It's just I mean, when you have a player that almost dies on the field, or maybe he did die, and maybe there's a clone.
He's dead. It's a double.
And maybe, it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, of course you're going to be distracted. Honestly, I would have never brought the dude to the game at all.
Right. I think they played flat.
Way I would have done.
I think it was.
Like, we're trying to play football. Honestly, the Bills were more talented than the Bengals. You're playing at home. You don't need the distraction. Stay home, get better. We're going to go win some football games here.
So what I thought was most interesting about the game, and obviously I picked the Bengals. I really thought they would win the game regardless, but I didn't think that their offensive line and defensive line would dominate both sides of the ball, right? And I think that's where Buffalo ultimately lost the game.
Yeah. Well, that's why I picked the Bills. I mean, you had 3 offensive linemen for the Bengals not playing.
Right.
And you get no pressure on Burrow.
Right.
And Joe Mixon was having a field day too, running the ball.
Yeah.
And it was, that's where I thought, I was like, that was the one. I was like leaning towards the Bengals, but then I'm like, well, I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. And then I'm like, well, 3 offensive linemen, and that's usually the bad. So I was like, okay, I'll take the Bills. And then they didn't show up.
Right.
Yeah. The lines didn't show up.
And then, so, I mean, wrapping up last week, obviously the 49ers, Dallas, close game, but I think the story of this game is Dak really the quarterback that you want to continue to ride into your future? Like, what is Dallas doing? Like, I haven't liked Dak for years, but does the last couple years not really solidify that as that he is just a mediocre quarterback?
You're paying weight. It's not that he's a bad quarterback. The point is everyone the whole, for about a year, he needs to get paid. It's like he's not worth it.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, did you see some of those throws though? That interception. Come on.
It's not. But here, let's. Okay, I'm gonna be nice to him because they're talking about his thumb. He has metal in his thumb. You mess around with your thumb as a quarterback. Just look at Marino. That's what ended Marino's career.
Right.
He screwed up his thumb. And he's like, you know what? I'm done. I can't throw the ball. My thumb's screwed up. He's got metal in his thumb. He's got metal in his leg. He's just not worth the money. Can he go to the Saints and be a Super Bowl quarterback? Maybe. But this is the Cowboys. Roger Staubach.
Well, how's he going to do good at the Saints then? Because the Saints are pretty awful.
You know what? Nobody cares about the Saints. The Saints are the Saints.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's Jacksonville. We're talking about the Cow. He wants to be a star. You're not a star. Roger Staubach, the dude, play with broken fingers and he won Super Bowl.
Tony Romo.
I mean, dude. And everyone, it's like,
you haven't had
you're not a star. And everywhere, every commercial, if you go on Twitter, they were making fun of him though. And, I was like, I kind of feel bad for the guy. But you know what? That's why you don't do commercials when you don't deserve to do commercials.
I don't feel bad for him because I don't think he's good.
And then that's the whole thing, and we just talked about Burrow needing to win the Super Bowl this year and Allen needing to win next year. What happened with Dak is he got paid. They paid Ezekiel Elliott. Then they couldn't pay anyone else.
Right.
And
they missed their window.
And that's
Pollard's a free agent next year, so he's gone.
And they missed their window for sure.
$100 million for Ezekiel Elliott, and what is he doing? He's basically the backup to Pollard, and then Pollard gets hurt. It's like you're paying people way too much money. I understand, pay them when they produce, pay them when they win a Super Bowl. This is the Cowboys. Yeah. This isn't the freaking Arizona Cardinals.
I will say their defense played really well.
Legit. Their
kept them
defense,
in
and
that
I feel
game.
bad for the defense. They
Yeah.
actually, and you can see Brock Purdy look like he didn't know what to do. He's like, I guess I'll just throw it to that George Kittle guy because that guy's just a stud.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Or
guy's an animal.
McCaffrey,
Yeah, McCaffrey's hurt, and he was hurt the whole game.
So let's talk about this because now we jump into let's talk the championship week here. I think all these games, especially the Cowboys and the 49ers game, I think had some telltale signs to what might happen here for next week. So what's your picks here? So let's start with Philadelphia and San Francisco. So Derek, why don't you lead us off?
Oh, that's this one this is a tough one for me because I really want to take the 49ers, but I look at the Eagles and they're more of a complete team because their defense is really good too. They have the most sacks in the NFL since the 85 Bears.
Wow.
So they can get after the quarterback. And their offense is the number one offense in the NFC. And it's the whole dynamic of Hurts because, when you have a traditional really good defense, but you have like a Mahomes or a Hurts or somebody, it messes it up because he can break down your defense. So yeah, this one's tough, but I just got to go with Hurts over Brock Purdy.
Yeah. You got Philly at home.
I'm taking the Eagle.
Yeah.
And they're at home.
I think.
What do you think, Wes?
Eagles by 4.
I think everyone, and we've been watching the last 5 or 6 weeks how good the 49ers are. But I think the difference is that the Eagles are playing at home. And the home crowd, I've never been to Philadelphia. I kind of want to go now just to see what Philadelphia is like. These people are hardcore. If they're playing San Francisco,
like the Bills Mafia, they jumping off RVs too.
No.
They're throwing stuff at Santa.
No.
Stuff at Santa.
This isn't the Eagles fans. It's not a clown show with these people. These people are hardcore.
Yeah,
they're hardcore.
They have a jail at the stadium.
It's like Seattle tries to be like them. No, these people are hardcore, and so there's schematically. I think the Eagles are really good, but you look at them and they won a lot of games in a row. It's because they have a complete team. And Jalen Hurts, I got to admit, they figured out, hey, we're going to utilize his strengths and limit his weaknesses. A lot of teams should have done this with a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. They did. They figured out Jalen Hurts. And I think they're going to figure it out against the Niners, but it's going to be a close game. And the other thing is, Mitchell's hurt, McCaffrey's dinged up, and Debo's hurt. And that it's going to be very, very close game, but I'm going to take the Eagles too.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think, when you talk about complete team, I think Derek's right. When, I don't know that there is a more complete team than the Eagles, top to bottom. The issue I had with the Eagles coming up, and I think they kind of quieted a little bit of it last week, but also I think they were playing a Giants team who was at the end of the road anyway. I think they hit their maximum that they were ever going to do for they overachieved already. And I think they were like, it's exit time. But the Eagles haven't looked so good recently, right? And obviously Jalen's been banged up a lot, and that yeah, so it has a lot to do with that. I think it's gonna be a tough game for them. I think it'll be a time where the defense is going to get after them. I think the Niners defense and the Cowboys defense is similar, and I don't think that bodes well for Philadelphia either. I think it comes down to, can the 49ers stop the Eagles? I think that this is the difference in the game. If the 49ers can hold the Eagles in that 20-point range, I think they can win the game. If the Eagles get above, 20, 21 to 30 points, I think now you look at the Eagles win the game.
It it's
So
it it
it's a real hard game to pick.
it, it
Uh,
really is hard because the 49ers has just been. I mean, you just look at their I mean, how are you going to pick against Nick Bosa?
right.
That guy's an
So,
animal. Dude, that guy.
well,
It's like
he's going to be the defensive player of the year for sure. I think he's going to lock that award up. The issue I have is if I don't pick the 49ers, my sister will be mad at me.
oh Jesus
So
Christ, your sister.
she's
Why? She a 49er fan?
she's 49ers fan.
Oh God.
So I'm gonna take the 49ers by a field goal.
Oh, no.
Wait, I don't know. I think the game could go either way.
Now we're gonna do it because we're sisters. My sister doesn't know football, so I'm gonna pick nobody.
So I'm taking the 49ers by a touchdown. I really think the game could go either way. I think there's the deficiencies that the Niners have that they need to overcome, and the Eagles just need to play as good as they can. Like if the Eagles just play like they're normal, they'll probably win the game. If they have a couple turnovers or a couple things don't go right for them, I think they could be in trouble.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? It could go. It could. You're right, Steve. It was very. It's hard for me to pick that game. Very hard. That's a hard game to pick.
Well, the problem I have,
both these games are.
right,
They are.
both
They're
really
both
hard games to pick. The issue I have for the Eagles though is it's going to really rest on Jalen Hurts' shoulders because 49ers have good secondary players and they can definitely lock up Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and make Hurts throw really good balls to get it to him. So they might not shut him down completely, but if he can throw a good ball, he's going to make completions. And so he has to be very consistent.
Well, her. I think they win. Hurts. They win by Hurts running the football.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I
It's
think
going to come on his shoulders.
The X factor is they're not going to be able to run against that Niner defense traditionally.
Right.
They're not going to be able to throw it downfield against them. It's going to be him running that option, running more read option, and making big plays that way. So,
yeah, well, I think it's gonna be a good game. So I said I'll stick with the Niners and hopefully I'll get a swing game on this one because after wild card weekend, got some catching up to do. Let's see. So Bengals, Chiefs, um, like you said, I think equally as hard, maybe even harder for me, uh, because I just don't know what's going to happen here. So Wes, what do you got?
been thinking about it for like 4 days. And, it's hard for me to pick the Bengals because are they really going to beat the Chiefs again in their own place? Is Patrick Mahomes pretty much? I don't care if he's hurt or not. Can you imagine like the Bengals go in there and beat them again in
Right.
the AFC Championship? And it's so hard to pick the Bengals, but the Bengals are playing so good on defense. Defensively, they're figuring things out. And offensively, if they can't figure it out, you still have that game named Joe Burrow. And he's playing so well. And his receivers. Look at T. Higgins. Forget about Chase. We know about Chase. Look at Higgins. Look how well he's playing. Okay, I guess I got Mixon. I'm like, okay, they're gonna roll over on my guys. I got Mixon. I'm rolling with the Bengals. Honestly, but I think myself, I'm scratching my head like they're really gonna beat the Chiefs 2 times in their own place. I mean, is Patrick Mahomes, like I said, that ankle is going to be the most experimented ankle in the history of sports.
Oh yeah.
They're going to inject so much stuff in that ankle. He's going to he's going to like the bionic man. He's going to be like what? He has an ankle problem.
It's like Varsity Blues, at halftime they go in and they put the needle
They
in
did
him.
do that. You notice how he didn't limp at all in the second.
I know. I was watching that, and my cousin Jonah, he's like, look, Patrick Mahomes is back, and I was like, yeah, they just put that needle in there, and he's all good for the rest of the game.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean?
When he was throwing off of 1 foot, the dude was throwing off of 1 foot. I mean, that's how stupid.
There was no hobbling or anything.
No, not in the second half. Not in the second half.
No.
So in the second half, he looked like he was just normal again.
Whatever. Watch the film. He was throwing off of 1 foot.
In the first half, he was definitely.
No, the second half. He was throwing off of 1 foot.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was trying not to put pressure on it for sure, but he wasn't like he was in the first half. He couldn't do anything.
He couldn't drop back in the first.
He couldn't even move.
But the thing is, Andy Reid's like, all right, we're not going Chad Henne. This is, let's be realistic here. It's Chad Henne.
Yes, well, he did drive 98
He's
yards.
a nice old guy, but he's not the best quarterback in the NFL. We're going to put him in the shotgun. He's not going to drop back at all. I would put him in the shotgun. If you got to run, you run Reed off with Pachenko.
I think they win that game with Chad Henne playing the rest of the game. I don't think they needed to put Mahomes back in. I think they still would have won.
I mean,
the Jaguars
experience
showed up big time because you could see they could have. There were times you're like, oh, they could win this game, but they just
dropped balls. Routes not run right,
fumble at the end of the game. That just in the 10-yard line.
They could have won that. They gave away that game at point.
Yeah, it was a lack of experience. It was, again, I think they were in the same spot as the Giants. Not as bad because obviously Mahomes gets hurt and he can't play up to his full potential. But I think they really reached their limit for the season. Their inexperience showed. There was just, I think Chad Henne would have won the game if he would have played out. But either way, Kansas City, I mean, at home, right? So that's tough. Like, you talk about a good fan base, like that's a great fan base, right? It's going to be tough to go in there and beat them. Here's the issue I have with Kansas City, right? So everybody's like, oh, Mahomes all 5 years, Kansas City's been to 5 straight in conference championships. Well, they've only won 2 of them, and it only resulted in 1 Super Bowl. And so how good are they really in the conference championships? Not that great. Of course they're playing really good teams, but last year was the Bengals, and then Bengals beat them early in the year. Bengals are going to be really confident and have a lot of momentum coming off that Buffalo victory. And so for that reason, I'm going to take the Bengals. I think it'll be a close game, but I think at the end of the game, it's going to come down to all 3 receivers of the Bengals getting involved, because I think Boyd's a good receiver. I think Higgins is a good receiver, and if Burrow mixes it up well, and Hurst is playing well, so I think they just have a little bit more. And I don't super trust Kansas City's defense, so I'm going to go with Cincinnati for that reason.
Yes, like I've been picking back and forth because I look at Kansas City, and the only thing that I can think of to stop the Bengals offense is Frank Clark and Chris Jones. If they can get pressure on Burrow, because Burrow's not a scrambler.
Right. And they will get pressure.
That could be the difference. Yeah. That could be the difference in the game. But if I'm going the Eagles over the Niners, I'm going the Bengals over the Chiefs, because they are the more complete team out of the 2, because their defense is good. The only issue I have is Eli Apple. He sucks. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's everyone's talking about how great it, this is a game they're going to need Tyreek Hill. And they don't have him. And they don't have anyone that could do that. So, picking the Bengals.
So Derek's got Philadelphia the Bengals. Wes, what's you got?
Philadelphia Bengals and your
Philadelphia
Bengals,
and I got Niners Bengals. So we all got the Bengals.
I think there's a trend here. I think
Wes, you should have went Philadelphia, Kansas City, because then we would have had all three covered.
But this is good.
I'm not. I really want the Bengals to win.
Yeah,
and I want the Bengals to win it all. That's my thing. Should the Chiefs win? I don't care if Patrick Mahomes has 1 foot. They could probably still win. But I just don't want them to win, in a sense. I want the Bengals, dude.
Wes, I'm surprised. Cool. Mr. Super Bowl historian, Wes. What matchup would be the best matchup for a Super Bowl historian?
49ers Bengals. Come on.
The third time.
It would be. And if people don't remember those games, everyone remembers Super Bowl 23. People don't remember Super Bowl 16. And the fact is, the Bengals almost came back and beat the Niners in that game.
Yeah.
You're down 20-0 at halftime. And the Bengals came back. They lost 26-21. So, and if it wasn't for a goal line stand, the 49ers had a goal line stand to stop the Bengals. They lost by 5 points. That was the difference.
The Bengals, you think about the Bengals here, like you can't go to your 4th Super Bowl, right, and lose.
You can't.
Because then who you start
You're
looking
the Bills.
like the Bills, right?
You're the
Vikings.
You're the
The Bills.
Vikings.
At one point, the who's the other team that was Denver, right? Denver kept losing Super Bowls.
Yeah,
at least they came back and won some, But yeah, I mean, you can't go to your 4th Super Bowl and you don't have a victory yet. So if they get past Kansas City, I mean, you really got to want to get there first. So they got to win this game, don't they?
Wow.
Yeah, and like you said, their window is closing.
Yeah,
it is. They got to pay all these players. This is their year. They don't have another. They have to win this year, and that's one of the reasons why I'm like, you know what? It's Joe Burrow. He knows it too. You got to get it done now, and you might and you might never win. You might be like Aaron Rodgers. You might never win another Super Bowl again.
They'll still be competitive is the thing, right? They'll still be around the playoffs, and they'll still do that. This is just their best chance right now.
Yes.
Like they may not get another good chance for another maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
And you know what I don't like is that, it's like ESPN runs it. Like you watch ESPN and they're like, talking about Joe Cool, Joe that. They had Joe Namath on talking about Joe Burrow. Like, really? Like,
yeah,
just
but Joe Namath is kind of trash.
You're not Joe Namath, go out there and pick up on some like old like Perkins waitresses. We don't need to see Joe Namath, dude. It's not the same thing.
Give me Joe Montana.
Yeah. But where's Joe Montana? Bring on someone.
He's more Joe Cool than Namath.
Of course.
At least he did stuff in Super Bowls.
So
I watched Super Bowl 24 a couple days ago. I want to talk about a demolishing. That is the biggest demolishing I've ever seen in a football game. When they demolished the Broncos.
Yeah.
It's like Joe Montana didn't care. Joe Montana can be like, I don't care. Like,
I don't know. The Redskins.
The ball, John Taylor is like
the Redskins game was pretty.
Dude, beat down of all beat downs. Romanowski, oh my god.
The reason I think the Redskins was so because it was kind of surprising at the same time where you didn't really
Because
think the
Doug
Redskins
Williams
were
was the
just gonna
backup.
right. You didn't think they were gonna come out and just get on them like that and just destroy them. Like you like, oh, it's gonna be a good game.
Well, they were up. The Broncos were up 10-0.
Right. Yeah,
And
so that
then
was
they
pretty
had
brutal.
Timmy Smith, who was a backup running back.
Yeah,
And they
backup
had Doug
quarterback,
Williams.
backup running back,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
go out and just kill them. That was great. So, all right, well that's our Super Bowl picks, our conference championship picks, or who's going to go to the Super Bowl. So we'll get into that. And so just to wrap up review. So last week uh we went 3-1, 3-1, 4-0. Wild card week, Derek, I think you went 5-1, right?
Yep.
So 5-1. Wes, you went 4-2.
I don't even know. I can't predict.
Yeah, you lost the Jags game and the Vikings game, right? I ended up 3-3 because I lost the Tampa, the Jags, and Minnesota game. So I need the 49ers to win this game. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or listen to the podcast. I'll put some minutes in for people that they can see if they want to catch the skip ahead to the picks. Make it easier on them. All right, we'll see you guys next time.